The Cirque du Soleil is one of the most popular entertainment franchises of our generation. Women riding unicycles while spinning multiple plates on sticks? Guys juggling wands of fire while standing on each other's heads? Are you kidding me? While we sit there with our jaws dropped open, completely mesmerized by their very unique abilities, seldom do we appreciate the incredible discipline required for success. Yet in each of those acts, there are more than a few principles of discipline at work. For one thing, they attempt something that few, if anyone else, can do, so what they do is extraordinary. Secondly, they limit themselves to juggle only what they know they can handle. Adding one more even minor obstacle to the mix could cause their performance to end in disaster. And third, they maintain their focus, even in the midst of an arena full of potential distractions. Many pastors probably feel that they are leading a circus, trying to spin multiple programming plates and juggle fiery wands of conflict. But a pastor's primary job is to recognize healthy boundaries and keep the church family safely inside them, helping them juggle only the number of items they can handle. There are a lot of programs and good ministries that your church could do, but your job is to help your people keep their focus on something extraordinary, something great, and in the midst of countless distractions. We are going to have to learn what Mr. Han said to the young men Dre in the movie The Karate Kid. Your focus needs more focus. In this section, you will learn to apply the principles of discipline and how to simplify your church and focus on the mission.
Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Does that sound familiar? That's not just a good commission, it's the Great Commission. And its greatness necessitates you keeping your church family focused on that great thing they should do, rather than settling for the good things they could do. Jim Collins put it best when he said, "Good is the enemy of great." As leaders, we cannot afford to offer Christ Church too many good things to do, otherwise we would never get around to doing anything great. Actually, popularity and growth may not be good enough reasons to keep providing a particular class or a program, and yet those seem to be the only criteria most of us pastors use in deciding future ministry priorities. The question isn't simply, is it popular? The question is, with who is it popular? The question isn't, is it growing? The question is, who's coming? Our team at HTC has canceled a number of very popular ministries because at some point, they actually became distractions to our mission or barriers to exponential thinking. This is the most difficult part of the entire Laser Church process. If you're a people pleaser by nature, you're in trouble. I can only imagine the look Jesus would give me at the judgment seat if I'd put everyone else's pet projects or programs ahead of his mission. You simply cannot say yes to everyone that asks you to facilitate the same ministry they enjoyed at their last church. Building more simple and effective oikocentric structures requires both a sensitive heart and pretty thick skin. I've made it clear to our team that even if our church were blessed with twice the resources we presently have, they should not look for new ministry projects to develop, but look for better ways to do what we already do, only for more people and more efficiently. Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, writes about the flywheel and the doom loop. A flywheel is a device used to bring consistency, simply to smooth out a machine's operation. And it stores energy, it generates momentum, it maintains a constant rotational speed. The actual source of power can be intermittent, yet the output will remain constant. Now, Collins talks about manually pushing a flywheel. It's 30 feet in diameter, weighs 5,000 pounds, and rotates on a 2-foot thick axle. And you push it for as long as you can and as fast as you possibly can. Now notice the source of power is intermittent because the source of the power is you. And every time you stop to take a breath, the power source is interrupted. But over time, your continued effort creates enough movement that the flywheel begins to generate its own momentum. But it is a grueling task and a tedious task, one that not only takes power, but great persistence to set the flywheel in motion. However, consistent energy in one direction over time helps build momentum and ultimately leads to the breakthrough that you want. And the point Collins makes is that great companies are produced through a sustainable pattern of accumulated discipline, consistent decisions, and persistent forward steps in alignment with their organization's purpose. But then he warns the unexpected can happen. which creates fear, even paralysis. Collins calls it the doom loop. And the doom loop starts with what he describes as reaction without understanding. Something scary happens. In the business world, it could be losing market share or seeing an economic downturn looming on the horizon. In a ministry environment, it might be being persecuted for your faith or being criticized by your board. Before your flywheel gets to the point of breakthrough, you essentially panic and decide to change course. In the case of the Old Testament Hebrews, it was a desire to go back to Egypt. In the case of the New Testament Hebrews, it was a desire to return to Judaism. In the case of a church member, it might be the desire to stop going to church or to stop being part of a small group. But that new direction, whatever it is more often than not a decision to go back to the old direction. The point is this: whatever the crisis, you probably don't have enough information to call for retreat, because to do that would create a loss of momentum. And then disappointment sets in, and then team morale drops, and then motivation begins to wane. And it all began because you overreacted without understanding. You could condense much of Jim Collins' research down to this: mediocre companies are often plagued by chronic inconsistency. The message of the New Testament is essentially the same. Mediocre Christians are often plagued by chronic inconsistency. So whatever you decide your flywheel should look like, just keep pushing it. Tony Dungy said, "The champions don't do extraordinary things. They do ordinary things, but they do them without thinking. They follow the habits they've learned." By the way, you might ask, well, what does HTC's flywheel look like? For us, the flywheel is our three meaningfuls: meaningful worship, meaningful relationships, and meaningful roles. A very simple and disciplined model for ministry. And we keep pushing those elements religiously. Now, I know our faith is not religious, it's a relationship, but our ministry model, very religious, and it demands incredible discipline. Because oikos is a marathon, not a sprint. You might recall that the rabbit was distracted by a ton of things. We call them rabbit trails. But the tortoise is focused on one thing: winning the race. And you might recall, he did win the race.